Kang Daeho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched the morning shift change at the Kepler mining colony. The red sun cast long shadows across the rocky ground, and the air tasted like metal and dust. He had been running this operation for 3 years now, and every day brought new challenges. But today felt different. Today felt dangerous. "Morning report, boss," said Park Soo-yeon, walking up with her security tablet in hand. Her uniform was clean and pressed, but Daeho knew she kept 3 weapons hidden on her body at all times. Old habits from her military days never died. "What's the word?" Daeho asked, taking a sip of his coffee. The bitter taste helped wake him up after another short night's sleep. Movement on the outer sensors. Could be nothing, could be trouble. Soo-yeon pulled up the data on her tablet. 3 ships landed about 20 kilometers north. "They're not responding to our calls." Daeho frowned. In all his years on Kepler, unexpected visitors meant one thing: problems. Any idea who they are? The signatures look like Saurian vessels. Maybe some hive mind ships too. Soo-yeon's voice stayed calm, but Daeho noticed her hand move closer to her sidearm. "Want me to send out a patrol?" Before Daeho could answer, Lee Hyun-woo came running from the main building. The young engineer looked excited, almost jumping with energy. Boss, you need to see this." "Slow down, Hyun-woo. What's got you so worked up?" "The deep shaft in Sector 7. We hit something big. Really big." Hyun-woo's eyes were wide with excitement. "The quantum crystal readings are off the charts. This could be worth billions of credits." Daeho felt his stomach drop. Quantum crystals were rare, valuable, and dangerous to mine. But more importantly, they attracted the wrong kind of attention. He looked at Soo-yeon, who was already thinking the same thing. "How many people know about this?" Soo-yeon asked. "Just me and the night crew. About 6 people total." Hyun-woo's excitement started to fade as he saw their serious faces. "Is that bad?" "Maybe," Daeho said. He looked toward the north where those ships had landed. "Soo-yeon, double the guards around the mining equipment. And get me a comm link to Earth Command, already tried. The communications array is down. Probably just maintenance, but..." Soo-yeon didn't finish the sentence. They all knew what it might mean. 20 kilometers away, Vextai stood on a rocky hill looking down at the human colony through his binoculars. The Saurian mercenary captain's scales were dark green, and his yellow eyes showed no mercy. Behind him, his crew of mixed alien species checked their weapons and armor. "Pathetic," Vextai hissed. "Look how they scurry around like insects. These humans think they can claim the crystals for themselves." Quindar, the hive mind representative, made a clicking sound with his mandibles. "The intelligence reports confirm massive quantum deposits. Our employers will pay handsomely for exclusive access. And all we have to do is remove some soft mammals from their homeworld." Vextai said with what might have been a laugh. "I've studied these humans. They're new to space travel. Weak. They've never faced real warriors." One of the other mercenaries, a 4-armed Keldon, raised a concern. "The reports say they come from a death world. Shouldn't we be careful?" Vextai waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Every species calls their home planet dangerous. These humans have been in space for less than a century. How dangerous can they be?" Back at the colony, Daeho gathered his senior staff in the main building. The room was small and cramped, with maps of the mining operation covering the walls. Besides Soo-yeon and Hyun-woo, he had called in Kim Ji-won from communications, Choi Min-soo from the mining crew, and Yang Nari from medical. "Here's the situation," Daeho began. "We've found a major quantum crystal deposit. We have unknown ships in the area, and our communications are down. This could be coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences." Choi Min-soo, a weathered veteran who had been mining for 30 years, spoke up. "I've seen this before on other worlds. Word gets out about a big find and suddenly you have visitors with guns." "What are you suggesting?" asked Yang Nari. The medical officer was young but smart, and she understood the implications. "I'm suggesting we prepare for trouble," Daeho said. "Soo-yeon, what are our defenses?" "Standard colony security. Energy barriers around the main buildings, some automated turrets, and small arms for the security team. Nothing that could stop a serious attack." Soo-yeon pulled up the colony's defensive systems on her tablet. "What about the mining equipment?" asked Hyun-woo. Choi Min-soo's eyes lit up. "The plasma cutters could work as weapons. The heavy lifters could move barriers. And we've got enough explosives to level half the colony if we need to." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Daeho said. But he was already thinking like a soldier again, planning defensive positions and escape routes. "Kim, keep trying to reach Earth Command. Everyone else, start preparing quietly. If I'm wrong, we lose some sleep. If I'm right. He didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. The first attack came at sunset. The aliens had moved their ships closer during the day, setting up a perimeter around the colony. Vexti had expected to walk in and demand surrender. Instead, he found the humans had already prepared. The energy barriers were up and reinforced. The colonists had disappeared into defensive positions. Most surprising, the mining equipment had been repositioned to create obstacles and weapon platforms. What is this? Vexti demanded as his troops took cover from plasma cutter fire. The intelligence said they were miners, not soldiers. Many of them are former military, Quindar observed, studying the defensive positions. Their tactics are more sophisticated than expected. The first wave of alien attackers met fierce resistance. The humans had turned mining lasers into sniper weapons, using them to pick off aliens from long range. The heavy mining equipment had been converted into mobile gun platforms, rolling forward to provide covering fire for human positions. Deho crouched behind a reinforced barrier, watching the alien forces through his scope. Suyan report. They've got about 50 troops, mixed species. Professional mercenaries, but they expected an easy fight. Her voice came through his earpiece. They're pulling back to regroup. Casualties? 3 wounded on our side, nothing serious. They've lost at least 10. There was satisfaction in her voice. Lee Hyunwoo's excited voice came over the comm. Boss, you should see what Choi has done with the mining charges. He's turned the whole sector into a minefield. Despite the danger, Deho smiled. These aliens had made their first mistake. They had assumed that humans were just another weak species they could push around. They hadn't done their homework about Earth, about the kind of world that had shaped humanity for millions of years. As the alien forces regrouped in the distance, Vexti stared at the colony with new respect and growing anger. This was supposed to be simple, he growled. Perhaps we underestimated them, Quindar suggested. Impossible. They're just humans. But even as he said it, Vexti was beginning to doubt his own words. The defensive positions were too good, the tactics too smart, and the resistance too fierce for simple miners. Prepare for a full assault, he ordered. No more games. We'll crush them with overwhelming force. As night fell over Kepler, both sides prepared for the real battle to begin. The aliens had superior numbers and technology, but the humans had something else. They had experience surviving on a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years. They had the instincts of predators who had climbed to the top of their planet's food chain, and they were just getting started. The second day brought no mercy from either side. Vexti had spent the night planning a more careful attack. His forces surrounded the colony completely, cutting off all escape routes. He had learned from his first mistake, but he was about to make a second one. No food goes in, no people come out, he told his lieutenants as they studied maps of the area. We'll starve them into surrender. Humans are soft. They'll give up when things get uncomfortable. Quindar clicked his mandibles in agreement. The hive mind analysis supports this strategy. Humans require frequent food and water. They cannot survive siege conditions for long. Inside the colony, Daiho gathered his people in the main underground storage area. The room was filled with supplies, but he knew they wouldn't last forever against a siege. What the aliens didn't know was that humans had been surviving sieges for thousands of years. Listen up, everyone, he said to the 43 colonists who remained. They think they can wait us out. They think we'll panic and surrender when we get hungry. Kim Ji-won looked up from her communication equipment. Still no contact with Earth Command. They're jamming everything. That's fine, said Park Soo-yeon. We don't need Earth Command to handle a bunch of overconfident aliens. Choi Min-soo stood up from where he'd been checking supply lists. I've been through worse than this in the asteroid belt wars. These aliens don't know what they're dealing with. Yang Nari had been treating the wounded from yesterday's fighting. Everyone is ready to keep fighting. Morale is actually pretty good. Deho nodded. That's because we're not just miners anymore. We're a pack now, and packs don't break easily. The aliens started their siege with confidence. They set up camps at safe distances and began systematic harassment. Energy weapons fired at random intervals to keep the humans awake. Drones flew overhead trying to map the colony's defenses. Supply drops were intercepted and destroyed, but the humans adapted quickly. They had lived through Earth's ice ages, droughts, and disasters. A little discomfort wasn't going to break them. Lee Hyunwoo had been working day and night on defensive improvements. I've rigged the mining tunnels with sensor nets, he reported to Deho. Anyone tries to sneak in underground, we'll know about it. What about the power situation? Deho asked. The fusion reactor has enough fuel for months, and I've set up backup systems using the mining equipment. Even if they take out the main power, we can keep fighting. Bae-tae-hyung, the demolitions expert who had arrived on the last supply ship, grinned as he showed off his latest creation. Shape charges made from mining explosives. Set them in the right places and we can bring down their whole camp. Sun Yoonji had taken position on the highest building in the colony. The former pilot had lost her ship in the first attack, but she had found a new purpose as a sniper. I can see their entire perimeter from up here, she said. Give me the word and I can start picking off their guards. The first real test came on the third day. A team of alien commandos tried to infiltrate through the mining tunnels. They moved carefully, using advanced stealth technology that should have made them invisible. But Hyunwoo's sensors caught them anyway. Movement in Tunnel 7, he whispered into his comm. How many? Soo-yeon asked. 6 contacts moving slow. Daeho smiled grimly. Spring the trap. The tunnel erupted in a series of controlled explosions. Choi Min-soo had rigged the passages with mining charges weeks ago, just in case. The alien infiltrators never knew what hit them. Tunnel 7 is sealed, Choi reported, along with everything that was in it. Above ground, Vextai heard the explosions and snarled in frustration. They were supposed to be trapped like animals. How are they still fighting back? Perhaps, Quindar suggested carefully, we should reconsider our approach. These humans are proving more resourceful than anticipated. No, Vextai's tail lashed angrily. They're just lucky. And luck runs out. But the humans weren't relying on luck. They were using something much more reliable, teamwork. Every colonist had a role to play. The children helped with communications and supply runs. The elderly shared knowledge about defensive tactics. Everyone contributed. Kim Ji-won had managed to establish short-range contact with other colonies. There's a merchant ship 3 days out, she reported. They're carrying medical supplies and some security equipment. Can we hold out that long? Yagnari asked. We can hold out as long as we need to, Daeho said with confidence. These aliens still don't understand what they're up against. On the 4th day, the aliens made their second major mistake. Instead of continuing the siege, Vextai decided to launch a full assault. He was tired of waiting, tired of losing troops to human traps and snipers. We'll hit them from all sides, he told his forces. Overwhelming force, no mercy. End this today. The attack began at dawn. Alien troops advanced from every direction, expecting to crush the human resistance quickly. They had superior numbers, better weapons, and advanced armor. What they didn't have was experience fighting humans. The colonists didn't panic when the attack began. Instead, they moved like a well-oiled machine. Everyone knew their role, their position, their responsibility to the group. Sun Yoonji started picking off alien officers from her sniper position. Her shots were precise, taking out commanders and disrupting alien coordination. Bae-tae-hyung's explosive traps turned the battlefield into chaos. Every step the aliens took was dangerous. Buildings collapsed, roads exploded, and carefully planned advances turned into confused retreats. The mining equipment that the aliens had dismissed as harmless became deadly weapons in human hands. Plasma cutters carved through alien armor. Heavy lifters crushed entire squads. Transport vehicles became mobile fortresses. But most importantly, the humans fought as one unit. When aliens broke through one defensive line, another group was already in position to stop them. When ammunition ran low in one sector, supplies appeared from another. They're fighting like they share one mind, observed an alien trooper to his commander. Impossible, the commander replied. Only hive mind species can coordinate like that. But he was wrong. Humans had learned this kind of cooperation through millions of years of hunting in packs, surviving disasters together, and protecting their communities. It was in their DNA. By the end of the day, the alien assault had failed completely. They had lost nearly half their troops while the humans had suffered only minor casualties. Worse, the humans were starting to fight back more aggressively. Sir, one of Vextai's lieutenants reported nervously. They've started hunting our patrols. 3 teams went out this morning and never came back. Vextai studied the tactical display with growing unease. Red marks showed where his troops had been killed or gone missing. The pattern was disturbing. The humans weren't just defending anymore. They were hunting. How is this possible? He muttered. They're supposed to be miners, not warriors. Quindar had been analyzing the human tactics all day. I believe we have made an error in our intelligence assessment. These humans display predator behaviors, not prey behaviors. What does that mean? It means, Quindar said slowly, that we may have cornered the wrong species. That night, Deho stood on the colony's main building, looking out at the alien camps in the distance. His people had fought brilliantly, but he knew the real test was still coming. How are we doing on supplies? He asked Suyon. Better than expected. We've been capturing alien equipment faster than we're using our own. And morale? Suyon smiled. The crew is actually enjoying this. I think they're proud of what we've accomplished. Deho nodded. He was proud too. These aliens had expected to find frightened miners. Instead, they had found something much more dangerous, humans with their backs against the wall. Pass the word, he said. Tomorrow we stop playing defense. Tomorrow we show them what happens when you corner a Deathworlder. The fifth day began with silence. Vextai woke to find his perimeter guards missing and his communication arrays destroyed. During the night, the humans had somehow slipped past all his defenses and struck at his most secure positions. Impossible, he hissed, staring at the wreckage of his command post. They were trapped inside the colony. How did they get out here? His lieutenant, a nervous Keldan named Rivnak, pointed to tracks in the dust. The tunnels, sir. They used the mining tunnels we thought were sealed. But we destroyed those tunnels days ago. They must have dug new ones. Rivnak studied the evidence with growing respect. While we watched their front door, they built back exits. Vextai's tail lashed in fury. These humans were making him look like a fool. Double the guards around our remaining positions. Post sentries in all directions. They won't surprise us again. But even as he gave the orders, Vextai felt something he hadn't experienced in years of mercenary work. Doubt. These weren't supposed to be soldiers. They were supposed to be soft civilians who would surrender at the first sign of trouble. Inside the mining complex, Deho was leading his senior staff through the deep tunnels. They had spent the night expanding their underground network, creating a maze of passages that connected to every part of the colony and beyond. This is brilliant, said Lee Hyunwoo, admiring Choi Min-soo's engineering work. We can move anywhere without being seen. It's not brilliant, Choi corrected him. It's necessary. When you're outnumbered, you don't fight fair. You fight smart. Park Soo-yeon was checking weapons and equipment. The night raids worked perfectly. We took out their communications, their sensors, and half their guards. They're starting to panic. Good, said Deho. Panicked enemies make mistakes, and we're going to take advantage of every mistake they make. Bai Tai-hyung had been preparing special surprises for the aliens. I've rigged their supply dumps with delayed charges. When they try to resupply, they're going to get a nasty shock. What about their ships? Asked Yang Nari. Son Yunji grinned from her position near a tunnel entrance. Already handled. I put tracking devices on all their vessels last night. If they try to run, we'll know where they go. The humans had discovered something important during their night operations. The aliens weren't just overconfident, they were terrified. Their camp discipline was breaking down. Guards jumped at shadows. Officers argued about strategy. Some troops were already talking about retreat. They expected to hunt prey, Deho observed, but they found predators instead. The transformation was complete now. The mining colony had become something else entirely, a fortress run by humans who had remembered what their species was truly capable of. That afternoon, Vextai made his third and most fatal mistake. Frustrated by the hit-and-run tactics, he decided to force a final confrontation. He would drive the humans into the deepest parts of the mining complex and trap them there. They can't run if there's nowhere to go, he told his remaining forces. We'll push them into the deep tunnels and finish this. Quindar tried to object. Sir, the tunnels are their territory now. We would be at a severe disadvantage. I don't care about disadvantages. Vextai's voice echoed across the camp. I care about results. We'll flush them out like the vermin they are. The assault began at sunset. Alien troops advanced on the colony from all sides, driving inward toward the mining complex. The humans retreated steadily, drawing their attackers deeper and deeper into the tunnels. To Vextai, it looked like victory. The humans were running, abandoning their defensive positions, fleeing into the depths where they could be trapped and eliminated. He had no idea he was walking into the most sophisticated trap ever set by human hands. The mining complex was a three-dimensional maze of tunnels, shafts, and chambers that went down for kilometers. The humans had been working in these tunnels for years. They knew every passage, every dead end, every structural weakness. More importantly, they had prepared. All units in position? Daiho asked through his comm as he watched the aliens pour into the tunnels. Ready in Sector 1, reported Suyan. Charges armed in Sector 2, confirmed Bei Taehyung. Sniper, positions established in Sector 3, added Son Yunji. Trap, doors ready in Sector 4, said Choi Min-soo with satisfaction. The aliens advanced confidently at first. The tunnels were well lit and seemed safe enough. But as they went deeper, things began to go wrong. Passages that had been open suddenly collapsed behind them, cutting off retreat routes. Side tunnels that appeared empty suddenly erupted with weapons fire. Floor panels gave way, dropping alien troops into deeper shafts. It's a trap, Rivnak shouted into his comm. The whole complex is rigged. But it was too late. The aliens were scattered throughout the tunnel network, split into small groups that could be picked off one by one, and the humans were hunting them. In the deep tunnels, something primal had awakened in the human colonists. These were the same instincts that had helped their ancestors survive in caves and tunnels for millions of years, the same pack-hunting behaviors that had made them apex predators on Earth. They moved through the darkness like ghosts, using their knowledge of the tunnels to appear and disappear at will. They set ambushes, created diversions, and systematically eliminated their enemies. Contact in Tunnel 7. An alien trooper screamed before his comm went dead. Squad 5 is not responding, reported another. Something's moving in the walls. Panicked a third. Vextai tried to maintain control from his command position at the tunnel entrance, but his forces were disintegrating. Every few minutes, another team would go silent. The few survivors who made it back told impossible stories of humans appearing from nowhere, striking without warning, then vanishing into the darkness. They're not fighting like civilized beings, one traumatized trooper reported. They're fighting like animals. Savage, cunning animals. Pull everyone back, Vextai finally ordered. Full retreat. But retreat was no longer possible. The humans had sealed most of the exit routes. The aliens were trapped in a maze designed by their enemies, fighting opponents who knew every inch of the battlefield. Oh Sung-hwan, the colony's geologist, had spent the day preparing his own contribution to the battle. Initiating seismic charges, he announced calmly. Deep underground, carefully placed explosives began reshaping the tunnel network. Passages shifted and changed. New routes opened while others closed forever. The aliens found themselves in a constantly changing maze where the rules were written by human hands. Lim Heron had been monitoring alien communications all day. The colony's psychologist had identified key weaknesses in alien morale and was exploiting them ruthlessly. Attention alien forces, she broadcast on all frequencies. You are now trapped in tunnels designed by the species that survived the Ice Age, the Black Death, and 2 world wars. We have been preparing for this fight for 3 million years. You have been preparing for it for 3 days. How do you think this ends? The psychological warfare was devastatingly effective. Alien troops began surrendering rather than face the human hunters in the dark. Others simply ran deeper into the tunnels, preferring to get lost rather than fight. By midnight, the battle was over. Of the 50 alien troops who had entered the mining complex, only 12 survived. They huddled in a single chamber near the entrance, surrounded by humans who had appeared as if from thin air. Vextai was among the survivors, though his arrogance had been completely shattered. He stared at Daiho with new understanding and terrible fear. We surrender, he said quietly. Do you? Daiho asked. His voice was calm, but his eyes held the cold intelligence of a predator who had just proven his dominance. And what makes you think we're interested in your surrender? The alien mercenary captain realized, perhaps for the first time in his life, that he was completely at the mercy of a species he had underestimated. The humans had not just won. They had demonstrated why their planet was called a death world and why cornering them was the worst mistake any species could make. Please, Vextai whispered. We didn't know. We didn't understand what you were. Daiho studied the alien for a long moment. Around them, human colonists emerged from the shadows like ghosts returning from a hunt. Their faces were calm, their movements efficient, their eyes filled with the quiet confidence of survivors who had just defended their territory. Now you do, Daiho said simply. The captured aliens sat in the colony's main hall, surrounded by humans who no longer looked like simple miners. 3 days of fighting had changed them. They moved with the careful grace of predators, spoke in the efficient tones of warriors, and watched their prisoners with the cold patience of survivors. Bextai kept his head down, unwilling to meet the eyes of any human. The proud mercenary captain who had planned to eliminate these soft mammals now understood the magnitude of his error. These weren't prey animals at all. They were something much more dangerous. "The question," said Park Suyon, "is what we do with you now." Quindar, the hive mind representative, clicked his mandibles nervously. "We request prisoner of war status under Galactic Convention 7. Daiho looked at him with interest. Galactic Convention 7 applies to conflicts between recognized military forces. You're mercenaries. Pirates, really. That makes this a civilian defense action. The implications hung in the air. Under galactic law, civilians had the right to defend themselves by any means necessary. There were no rules about treatment of pirate prisoners. Oh Seungwan had been studying the captured alien equipment and vehicles. Their employers are listed in the ship databases. 3 major mining corporations and someone called the Hegemony Trading Guild. Corporate espionage turned violent, observed Lim Heron. They probably assumed human lives were cheaper than legal mining rights. Lee Hyunwoo looked up from the alien technology he'd been examining. Their communications equipment is still functional. We could send a message to their employers. What kind of message? Asked Bae Tae-hyung. Daeho smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. The kind that makes sure this never happens again. The decision was made to give the surviving aliens a choice. They could return to their ships and carry word back to the galaxy about what happened when you cornered humans. Or they could stay and work in the mines until a proper prisoner. Exchange could be arranged, Olay. 12 chose to leave immediately. Smart choice, muttered Sun Yunji as she watched them stumble toward their vessels. But Daeho wasn't done with them yet. He had learned something important during the fighting. Humans weren't just good at surviving. They were excellent at making sure threats didn't return. Suyon, how many of their tracking devices did Sun place on the ships? All of them. Plus some special gifts from our demolitions expert. Bae Tae-hyung grinned. Nothing fatal. Just enough to disable their weapon systems if they try to attack anyone else. The real message, though, would be carried by the survivors themselves. They had seen what happened when a supposedly superior force tried to eliminate humans. They had watched their advanced tactics fail against human adaptability. Most importantly, they had experienced the terror of being hunted by Earth's apex predators. That terror would spread. 2 days after the aliens left, Kim Ji-won finally re-established contact with Earth Command. The military response was swift and alarmed. Colony 773, this is Admiral Chen aboard the ESV Warrior. Please confirm your status. Daeho took the communication in his rebuilt office. Colony operational, Admiral. Threat neutralized. Threat neutralized? Our sensors showed 3 alien warships in your area. What happened to them? They left. Rather quickly, I might add. There was a long pause. Kang, are you telling me that 43 civilian miners drove off a professional mercenary force? 43 humans, Admiral. There's a difference, another pause longer this time. When the Admiral spoke again, his voice carried new respect. Understood. Fleet Command wants a full report, and Kang, well done. The news spread quickly through human space. A mining colony had defended itself against overwhelming odds. Not just surviving, but winning decisively. The story grew with each telling, as stories do, but the core facts remained the same. Humans were not easy prey. The galactic response was more complex. Some species dismissed the reports as exaggeration or propaganda. Others began studying human military history with new interest. A few started revising their opinions about Earth's newcomers to space. The Saurian High Command received Vextai's report with disbelief, then anger, then thoughtful consideration. The mercenary captain was stripped of his rank and exiled, but his tactical analysis was distributed to every Saurian military unit. Note the human use of environmental advantages. Read one section. They did not attempt to match our superior technology. Instead, they forced us to fight on their terms, in conditions that favored their natural abilities. The Hive Mind Collective was more analytical. Quindar's detailed observations became part of a comprehensive study on human pack behavior and tactical adaptability. Warning: human social bonding under stress creates combat effectiveness that exceeds the sum of individual capabilities. Standard crowd control measures are ineffective. Recommend avoiding confrontation with cornered human groups. But the most important change happened at the corporate level. The 3 mining companies that had hired the mercenaries quietly withdrew their claims to Kepler's mineral rights. The Hegemony Trading Guild issued new guidelines about human-controlled territories. Economic competition with human entities should be conducted through legal channels only. Physical intimidation tactics have proven ineffective and costly. Back on Kepler, life slowly returned to normal, though normal now had a different meaning. The mining operation continued, but with significant changes. The tunnel networks were maintained and expanded. Defensive positions were integrated into daily operations. Every colonist received basic military training. Most importantly, the humans had discovered something about themselves. They weren't just miners or engineers or doctors who happened to live on other planets. They were humans who carried the legacy of Earth wherever they went. You know what the funny thing is? Choi Min-soo said as he watched the sunset from the colony's main building. Those aliens kept calling us Deathworlders like it was an insult, isn't it? Asked Yang Nari. No, said Daeho, joining the conversation. It's a description. Earth tried to kill us for millions of years with ice ages, plagues, predators, disasters, and wars. We survived all of it. We adapted to all of it. We learned from all of it. And now we carry those lessons with us, added Park Soo-yeon. Lee Hyun-woo had been thinking about the tactical analysis reports they'd sent to Earth Command. Do you think this will change how other species see us? It already has, said Lim Heron. I've been monitoring galactic communications. The word is spreading. Humans aren't considered easy targets anymore. Bai Tae-hyung laughed. Good. Maybe the next bunch of pirates will think twice before trying to push us around. But Sun Eun-ji, who had spent years traveling between different worlds, shook her head. There will always be someone who thinks they can take what's ours. The question is whether they'll be smart enough to learn from these aliens' mistakes. Oh Seung-wan had been studying the geological surveys of their planet. Speaking of mistakes, has anyone else noticed that we're sitting on enough quantum crystals to make every human colony rich for the next 1,000 years? The group fell silent as the implications sank in. Kepler wasn't just a minor mining operation anymore. It was potentially one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in human space, which means, Daeho said slowly, that we're going to have visitors again. Different aliens maybe, but the same basic problem. Let them come, said Park Soo-yeon with confidence. We know who we are now. We know what we can do. And more importantly, added Choi Min-soo, we know how to prepare. The humans of Kepler had learned the most important lesson any species could learn. They were exactly as dangerous as they needed to be. Not because they sought conflict, but because they had been shaped by a world that demanded strength, intelligence, and cooperation for survival. They were Deathworlders. And that wasn't a weakness to overcome. It was a strength to embrace. 6 months later, Kepler Colony had become something entirely different. The mining operation still continued, but it was now protected by the most advanced defensive systems in human space. More importantly, it had become a symbol throughout the galaxy. The story of the human miners who defeated professional mercenaries had spread to every corner of civilized space. Different species told different versions, but the core message remained the same. Humans were not to be underestimated. Jang Woo-jin, the new colonial administrator, stood in his office reviewing the quarterly reports. The quantum crystal deposits had proven even more valuable than originally estimated. 3 major corporations were now negotiating legitimate mining partnerships with human colonies throughout the sector. No more pirate attacks, he noted with satisfaction. Corporate espionage, legal challenges, political pressure, but no more direct violence. An Yura, the military historian who had been sent to document the battle, looked up from her research files. The Galactic Council has been holding emergency sessions about human expansion. Some species are demanding restrictions on human colony rights. And the others? The others are offering military alliances. An smiled. Apparently, having Deathworlders as friends is considered valuable protection. The original colonists had become legends in their own right. Daeho had been promoted to Regional Security Director, overseeing defensive planning for 12 human colonies. Park Soo-yeon now commanded a rapid response force specifically designed to help human settlements under threat. But the most important changes weren't in titles or positions. They were in understanding. The Galactic Council had convened its first emergency session on human affairs just 2 months after the Kepler incident. Representatives from 47 species had gathered to discuss what they were calling the human question. The Altarian ambassador spoke first. These humans have been in space for less than a century, yet they've already demonstrated military capabilities that rival our best forces. They're not actually military forces, corrected the Centauran representative. That's what makes this so concerning. These were civilians who happened to fight like professional soldiers. The Saurian delegate, who had reviewed Vextai's tactical reports extensively, offered a different perspective. The issue isn't their military training. It's their evolutionary background. They come from a planet that spent millions of years trying to kill them. They adapted to survive anything. But they're also remarkably cooperative, noted the hive mind observer. Their pack-bonding behaviors allow them to coordinate complex actions without telepathic communication. This gives them tactical advantages that most species cannot match. The debate had continued for days with no clear resolution. Some species wanted to limit human expansion, fearing their aggressive potential. Others argued for partnership, recognizing that humans made powerful allies. In the end, they had settled on a compromise, the Human Accords. These treaties recognized humanity's right to expand and defend their colonies, while establishing protocols for diplomatic resolution of conflicts. More importantly, they included specific warnings about engaging human civilians in combat situations. Section 12. On read from her copy of the Accords. Any military action against human civilian populations must be preceded by formal diplomatic negotiation and approved by the Galactic Council. Unauthorized attacks on human colonies will be considered acts of piracy, subject to joint military response. Zhang Wujin nodded approvingly. Translation: if you want to fight humans, you have to fight all of us. The individual stories of the Kepler defenders had become case studies throughout galactic military academies. Li Hyunwoo's improvised engineering solutions were now taught as examples of adaptive problem-solving. Bai Taehyung's demolitions work was analyzed as a masterclass in defensive preparations. Sun Yoonji had been recruited by the Human Intelligence Service, where her skills as a sniper and reconnaissance specialist proved invaluable. Oh Seung-hwan's geological warfare techniques were being studied by military engineers across human space. But perhaps the most significant impact came from Lim Heron's psychological analysis of the battle. Her report on human stress response and pack behavior had revolutionized galactic understanding of Deathworld psychology. When cornered, she had written, humans don't become desperate. They become focused. Fear doesn't make them panic. It makes them more dangerous. This response is hardwired into their species after millions of years of evolutionary pressure. The report had become required reading at the Galactic Diplomatic Academy. Back on Kepler, Choi Minsu was training a new generation of miners in defensive techniques. The old veteran had discovered he enjoyed teaching young humans how to turn industrial equipment into weapon systems. The key, he told his students, is to remember that everything is a weapon if you use it right. A plasma cutter can cut through alien armor just as easily as it cuts through rock. A transport vehicle makes an excellent mobile fortress if you armor it properly. Kim Ji-won had established the colony's new communications center, which served as a hub for early warning systems throughout the sector. Her network of sensors and monitoring stations ensured that no hostile force could approach human colonies without being detected. Young Nari had expanded the medical facility into a full trauma center, but more importantly, she had developed new techniques for treating combat stress in civilian populations. Her methods were being adopted throughout human space. The real test of the new galactic situation came 8 months after Kepler. A human mining operation on Tau Ceti 4 reported suspicious ships in their system. This time, however, the response was immediate and overwhelming. 3 human Navy destroyers arrived within hours. A joint Altarian-Centauran peacekeeping force followed within days. The suspicious ships turned out to be pirates considering an attack, but they quickly decided to find easier targets elsewhere. The message has been received, Admiral Chen reported to Earth Command. No one wants to be the next group to underestimate humans. But the most satisfying vindication came from an unexpected source. The Hegemony Trading Guild, which had originally hired the mercenaries to attack Kepler, now employed human security consultants to protect their own operations. Ironic, isn't it? Park Suyeon remarked during one of her visits to the colony. They tried to eliminate us and now they're paying us to protect them. Not ironic, Daeho corrected. Logical. They learned from their mistake. The final validation came from the academic community. The University of New Geneva established the first department of Deathworld studies, dedicated to understanding how harsh planetary environments shaped species development. Their first major research project was a comprehensive analysis of Earth's evolutionary pressures and their impact on human psychology. The department's mission statement read, "To understand how worlds that nearly destroyed their native species instead created survivors capable of thriving anywhere in the galaxy." Humanity's reputation had changed completely. No longer seen as newcomers or primitives, they were now recognized as a species that had earned their place in the galaxy through millions of years of surviving the unsurvivable. The lesson of Kepler had become part of galactic common knowledge. Humans were dangerous not because they were aggressive, but because they were adaptive. They could turn any environment into an advantage, any tool into a weapon, and any challenge into an opportunity to prove their worth. But perhaps the most important lesson was simpler and more fundamental. It was carved into a memorial plaque at the entrance to Kepler Colony, written in a dozen galactic languages. Here stands proof that Deathworlders are not defined by the worlds that tried to kill them, but by their refusal to die. And underneath, in smaller text, was a warning that had become humanity's unofficial motto throughout the galaxy. Cornering a Deathworlder is the final mistake you'll ever make. The humans of Earth had found their place among the stars not through conquest or intimidation, but by simply being themselves. Survivors who had learned that the most dangerous predator in any ecosystem is the one that refuses to give up. The galaxy had learned to respect that refusal, and that respect had made all the difference.